His breath was still sour with whiskey when his mouth dropped against my shoulder, but I didn't flinch. His skin was damp against mine, trembling with the kind of guilt you only feel halfway through something you know you can't take back. His body jerked again, too fast, too deep, but I didn't let go. I held him there, anchored him, let him keep going, even when every muscle in my stomach told me I should have stopped this before it started. He gripped my hip like he didn't trust his own balance, like if I moved even a little, he'd fall apart completely. His forehead rested between my shoulder blades, hot, ragged, and pressed too hard, like he didn't know where to put all the weight in his chest. I closed my eyes. His name caught in my throat. The pressure inside me wasn't just physical, it was memory and guilt, and months of swallowing back the parts of me that still felt like a woman. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't confused. I knew exactly what I was doing when I pulled him inside from the porch and laid a blanket down on the floor. I knew what I was allowing when I tugged off his wet shirt and pressed a damp towel to his flushed skin. And I knew what I was risking the second I let him hold on to me like I was the only thing keeping him from going under. I never imagined I'd cross this line, but I did. And the worst part was, I didn't even cry after. I just laid there with him, pressed against me, still trembling, still pulsing with the remnants of what we'd just done, and I listened to my own heartbeat as it slowed. I should have hated myself. I should have pulled away. But instead, I kept one arm wrapped around his back and let the weight of him settle into me like a punishment I'd earned. I'm 41, divorced 4 years, mother of 2, owner of a catering business and a perfectly kept suburban kitchen that looks like it came from a magazine cover. I know how to fake smiles at PTA fundraisers. I know how to carry a conversation about summer camps and gluten-free snacks. I know how to keep my voice level when my ex texts at 11 p.m. asking for a favor. He should have stopped needing from me years ago. What I didn't know until tonight was what it would feel like to have someone want me with that kind of hunger, the kind that shakes in your hands and makes you forget your last name, the kind that makes you forget that the man lying across your chest is someone you were supposed to save. His name is Evan. 26. He was my nephew's best friend growing up. We hadn't seen him in a while until a few months ago when he moved back home. His mom asked if I could help keep an eye on him while he got his head right. Said he'd been through something heavy, the kind of vague trouble no one spells out. I didn't ask questions. He started showing up once a week, sometimes for dinner. Sometimes just to sit on the back porch and smoke those awful clove cigarettes he claimed he was trying to quit. I never minded. He was polite, quiet, sad in that way you don't want to say out loud. One night I found him shaking on my porch steps, drunk, drenched and bleeding from one knuckle, like he'd punched a wall or a memory. I brought him inside, sat him down, made him drink water. I remember kneeling in front of him with a damp rag wiping his hand clean. He whispered, "I didn't come here to mess anything up." And I said, "You didn't." But that was a lie, because something shifted in me that night, something I hadn't felt in years, the urge to hold someone, to matter, to be the thing someone leaned on when they were too tired to stand on their own. What would you do if the one person you were supposed to protect was the one you ended up craving in secret? He started coming around more after that. Stayed longer. Let his eyes linger when I leaned over the sink. Let his fingers brush my wrist when I handed him a plate. Let the silence between us grow thicker, warmer, harder to breathe through. Then tonight happened. He showed up shaking, said he'd messed up again, slurred something about how he didn't know where else to go. I brought him inside, let him sit on the kitchen floor while I made coffee, watched him fall apart in real time. When he started crying, I touched his shoulder. When he leaned into me, I wrapped my arms around him. He said, "I'm tired of feeling like a burden." And I whispered, "You're not." I wish I could say I stopped it there, that I helped him to the couch and went back upstairs like a responsible adult, but I didn't. I wiped his face. I kissed his temple. He turned into me like a man starved, and I let him. I laid him down, pulled the blanket over us, held his face in my hands while he pressed himself into me like he was asking for permission and forgiveness at the same time. I could feel him twitching inside me, every movement like a silent question, and I answered with the way I gripped his arms, the way I stayed, and I didn't let go. Even when the guilt landed heavy in my lungs, even when the tears welled up, and I had to turn my head to keep him from seeing. If you've ever lived with a secret that made you ache and burn at the same time, this story might speak to you more than you'd like. Please like and subscribe. The more you watch, the more stories like this will find others holding back the same truth. Let's begin. The next morning, I pretended to sleep as the sun pushed through the blinds. Evan moved quietly, too quietly. I heard the rustle of the blanket, the shift of his breath, the soft creak of my hardwood floor under his weight. He didn't say anything, didn't even try to touch me again. The door clicked shut behind him, and I just lay there blanketed in his scent and my shame. I didn't cry. I didn't move for nearly an hour. My body still ached from the weight of him, the pressure, the way his chest collapsed into mine, like he'd been holding himself up too long. I kept thinking about the way he'd touched my back, like he was afraid it might disappear. I was supposed to be helping him. I'm the one people call when they don't know what to do, the one who listens calmly, makes lists, shows up early, stays late. The woman who holds it all together, even when everything inside her has gone soft and hollow. I have a daughter in college, a son in trade school. I keep a fridge full of groceries and my ex-husband's last name because changing it felt like too much work. I haven't been touched in years. Not gently, not like that. It started out simple. Evan moved back to town 6 months ago. His mom, Janine, called me after his third failed attempt at rehab, said she didn't know what else to do. She said he trusted me, said he used to talk about how safe our house felt, how it was the only place growing up when no one yelled. I didn't hesitate. He looked rough when I saw him. Gaunt, quiet, still handsome but older somehow, tired in his bones. The first few visits were short. I kept it light. Fed him. Let him sit outside and breathe air that didn't come from a bar or a treatment center. He never said much, but I saw it in his eyes, that ache, that itch under the surface. Then one night he asked if I had any coffee. It was almost midnight. I was in pajamas. I should have said no. Instead, I brewed a pot. We sat in the kitchen like two insomniacs who'd seen too much and didn't know what to say about it. He asked about my ex. I gave him the cleaned-up version. He listened like it mattered. "You don't seem angry," he said after a long pause. "I don't have the energy for angry," I told him. "I've got bills and knees that hurt when it rains. Anger just slows me down." He smiled at that. After that night, he came by once a week, then twice. Sometimes he helped with yard work. Sometimes we just sat in silence. Once he fixed the track light above the stove, and I thanked him with lasagna I hadn't made for anyone in a long time. There was nothing flirtatious about it, at least not at first, but over time something shifted. He'd stare too long when I leaned over the oven. His fingers brushed my wrist when I passed him a plate and didn't pull away right away. We shared quiet looks when the conversation got too honest. He noticed the way I wore my hair differently. I noticed the way his voice dropped when he was tired. I told myself it wasn't a threat, that he was just lonely and needed a soft place to land. I wasn't prepared for how much I wanted to be that place. The guilt started early. Long before he ever touched me, It started the night I found myself checking the mirror before he arrived, switching into a better top-pinching color into my cheeks. That was when I knew. But I didn't stop him. Didn't stop myself either. The night before everything happened, he called me, said he was in trouble, said he didn't want to use, but couldn't stop shaking. He didn't ask to come over. He just said he didn't know where else to go, and I told him to come here. When he showed up, I could smell the alcohol on him before he even stepped through the door. It wasn't much, not like before, but enough to make his eyes glassy and his words too soft. I messed up, he said. I got tired. He looked up at me like he was still a little boy, like I had some answer he'd never learned. I didn't. But I pulled him in anyway, sat him down, wiped his face, let him hold my wrist when his hands wouldn't stop shaking. I shouldn't be here, he mumbled into my lap. And I said, "You're okay." But he wasn't. He clung to me like he was drowning. And part of me, God help me, part of me liked it. I didn't pull away when he pressed his face into my stomach. Didn't push him off when his arms wrapped around my waist. I remember running my fingers through his hair. Soft, slow, like I was comforting a child. Like I was trying to believe it was innocent. It wasn't. I wish I could say I hadn't thought about what it might feel like. But the truth is, I had. Quietly, shamefully, often. And when it happened, when he looked up at me and reached for my hand like he couldn't stand on his own, I didn't say no. I didn't say anything. I just took him upstairs, let him lie down, and when he pulled me down with him, I stayed. I stayed through every shudder, every breathless whisper, every twitch of his body against mine. I stayed because I wanted to, and because I knew even in the middle of it that I'd never be able to take it back. The day after, I expected silence, regret, maybe even avoidance. But he came back. He knocked once, then let himself in like he had a right to. I was in the kitchen slicing carrots. I didn't look up right away. I didn't know how to. He stepped close. Not too close, just enough that I could feel him there. "Hey," he said like nothing had happened. "Hey," I said back, barely above a whisper. Then we stood in that awful quiet. Not awkward waited. I waited for him to bring it up, to say anything. But he didn't. He just asked if I had any more of that tea he liked and walked to the cabinet like we were back to normal. Except nothing was normal. The knife trembled a little in my hand. Not enough to see, but enough to feel. My breath wasn't right, too shallow, my skin too warm. I watched him from the corner of my eye as he leaned against the counter. Hair damp, clean t-shirt, that boyish look in his face again, disarming, tired, hungry in some unspoken way. "I didn't plan for it to happen like that," he said finally. I stopped cutting. He wasn't looking at me, just staring at the fridge like it held answers. "I know," I said. "Me neither." He looked down. "But I don't regret it." I turned to face him then. "Don't say that." "Why not?" "Because if we start saying that we won't stop," he exhaled through his nose, "maybe we're already too far in." I couldn't answer, so I went back to slicing. The truth is, I couldn't stop thinking about it either. His hand on my ribs, his breath catching at my neck, the way he kept whispering, "Are you okay?" like he needed me to be sure. The way I nodded yes, even when I didn't know what yes meant anymore. But mostly, I remembered the moment afterward when he just held me, when neither of us moved, when his chest pressed into my back, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years, not just wanted, but needed, like I was his reason for staying above water. I hated how much I liked it. After that, we kept circling each other. He'd come over to fix the screen door, but end up staying to talk about childhood memories we weren't supposed to share anymore. I'd make dinner and pretend it was just for me, but always made enough for two. He never touched me again, not with his hands, but his words, his presence. They filled the space like fingers tracing invisible lines across my skin. One night we watched a movie. I sat on the couch, and he sat too close. "I can move," he said quietly, but I didn't ask him to. When the credits rolled, I stood up too fast. I could feel the pull in the air behind me like I'd left something unfinished. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Just tired." "You sure that's all?" I turned then, hands still on the back of the couch. "You don't get to ask me that." He frowned. "Why not?" "Because I'm trying to be the adult here." He stood, walked closer. So was I. His eyes locked on mine. That unbearable tension stretched between us again, like an elastic pulled too tight, and just one breath would snap it. "Do you think about it?" he asked. That night I looked away. I try not to. "But you do." I didn't answer. He stepped closer. "I do." I closed my eyes. "Evan." I wake up thinking about it. About how you looked at me like I wasn't broken. My breath hitched. "I wasn't trying to take advantage," he said. "I swear I wasn't." "I know. But I felt different. With you. Not small. Not like a screw-up." I turned toward him. The room suddenly too warm. "This isn't fair," I said. "Nothing about this is fair." His hand brushed mine. Light. Barely a touch. "I can't," I whispered. "But you want to." My throat tightened. "That's not the point." "Isn't it?" And then it happened again. Not the act itself, but something worse. I let him stay. Again. He didn't kiss me, didn't hold me, just sat there while I poured tea with shaking hands. Just listened to me talk about my daughter's upcoming visit, about the roof leak, about nothing. And I let it happen. I let the closeness become normal. The next afternoon, I found one of his sweaters in the laundry basket. That was the moment I realized how dangerous this had become. He had a place here now, a rhythm, a scent that lingered on my couch pillows and in the folds of my robe. He was filling spaces that no one was supposed to, and I couldn't pull away anymore. I tried. God knows I tried. I stopped texting first. Didn't answer when he knocked one night. But then he sent one message, "I miss hearing your voice." And I caved, because I missed his too. I missed being seen, touched, held like I wasn't an afterthought or an obligation. I missed being more than someone's former wife and someone else's reliable friend. But every moment I gave him, it stole something I couldn't put back. The rain hit hard that night, fat drops pounding the windows like someone wanted in. I remember the sound more than anything. Not thunder, not wind, just that steady percussion of water against glass while I stood at the kitchen sink, pretending not to wait for him. He hadn't texted in 2 days. I told myself that was good. Smart. It needed to stop. But when I heard the knock just one low and familiar, I didn't hesitate. I opened the door, and there he was. Drenched, shaking eyes, red-rimmed and wild with something he couldn't name. "I tried not to come," Evan said. I got halfway down the street and turned back. I didn't answer. I just stepped aside. He walked in, slow dripping on the mat, his clothes clinging to his skin. He didn't even look at me, just kept his gaze down, shoulders tight, like he'd been carrying something too long. "I'm not okay," he said quietly. I nodded. "I can tell." He looked up then, really looked, and whatever restraint I thought I had, it slipped. Just like that, like a dam cracking under too much silence. "Did I ruin it?" he asked. "No," I whispered, "but I think I'm about to." He didn't speak. He just moved toward me, wet clothes still clinging every step, heavy with meaning. When he reached me, his hand came up, slow, hesitant. He brushed a knuckle down my cheek. It was cold, rough, but it made my whole body go warm. I don't want to feel this way, I said. I didn't come here to ask you to. Then why are you here? He swallowed, because I can't stop needing you. The first kiss didn't land where it was supposed to. It hit the corner of my mouth, shaky misplaced. Our noses bumped. My breath caught. I almost laughed, but then his arms were around me and mine around him, and the sound that left my chest was something I didn't know how to hide anymore. His lips found mine again right this time. Deep, raw, familiar now. His mouth was urgent, his hands cautious, like he still thought I might push him away. I didn't. I led him upstairs, not like before, rushed and reckless. This time I moved slow, deliberate, turned on the hallway lamp, closed the bedroom door. He stood at the edge of the bed, dripping onto the floor, eyes locked on mine, like he needed me to speak first. You can still leave, I said. He shook his head. I won't. I stepped toward him, took his shirt in both hands, and peeled it up over his head. It stuck to his skin, heavy with rain. I let it fall to the floor. He didn't touch me, just stood there, arms slightly out-breath, uneven. I ran my hands up his chest, not to tease, to memorize. His skin was warm beneath the damp. His muscles tensed under my touch, like he wasn't used to being handled this gently. You're still shaking, I whispered. He exhaled, shaky and sharp. I'm scared you'll disappear after. I didn't answer. I just pulled him in. He kissed me like he was holding his breath, like I was the air, like the guilt hadn't caught up yet. His hands slid up my back, gripped too tight at first, then softened. I could feel him breathing into my neck, shaky, broken. I didn't mean for this to happen, he said. I know. I didn't come here for this. But you stayed. He nodded against my skin. I let him undress me slowly, like he wasn't sure I'd let him. Like every inch, he revealed, was permission he didn't quite believe he deserved. When we lay down, he hovered over me, his eyes wide, chest heaving, one hand braced at my side. I don't want to hurt you, he whispered. You're not. I think I already did. His body trembled as he lowered onto me. He fit, like he'd been waiting for this moment too long, and it overwhelmed him. I felt it in the way he gripped the sheets, the way his hips faltered too fast, too raw, too full of everything he hadn't said. I wrapped around him, not to guide, just to hold. He twitched again, sharp, helpless, buried his face into my neck with a groan that sounded too close to grief. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't mean to. I pulled him closer. Don't apologize, I said, barely audible. Just stay. We moved slow, messy, not practiced or pretty. It wasn't about pleasure. It was about need. His chest against mine, his fingers digging into my hip like he thought I'd vanish, his whole body shaking as he came undone inside me. And still I didn't let go, even as his weight dropped heavy against me, even as our breathing synced and slowed, even as my eyes burned from the truth I couldn't unfeel. We stayed like that, quiet, still, my hand on his back, his cheek against my shoulder. And for the first time in years, I felt full. Not whole, not fixed, but real. After a while, he whispered, I'm going to hate myself for this, aren't I? I ran my hand through his hair. You're not the only one. He didn't move. Neither did I. There wasn't anything left to say. We'd crossed the line, again. Only this time there was no pretending we could walk it back. The next morning, I found him asleep on his side, one arm flung across my pillow, his breath slow and soft. He looked young, too young for the things we'd done, too young for the kind of shame sitting like stone in my chest. I got up quietly, slipped into a robe, and went downstairs. made coffee I didn't want, stared out the window while the machine hummed behind me. I could still feel him, the imprint of his fingers on my hip, the weight of his chest, the quiet desperation in the way he moved, like he thought this might be the only time he'd be allowed to want like that. And I'd let him. I told myself it had been about helping him, about giving comfort, but the truth was there'd been a moment last night when he looked at me wide-eyed and shaking, and I didn't see someone I needed to fix. I saw someone who wanted me, and I let that be enough. When he came downstairs, his hair was messy, and his shirt clung crooked to his chest. He looked at me like he wasn't sure if he should speak. "You want coffee?" I asked, my voice tighter than it needed to be. He nodded. "Yeah, please." I poured him a cup, slid it across the counter. Our fingers touched barely. He didn't flinch. We stood in silence. Then he said I didn't mean to stay. I nodded. "I know. I didn't even know what time it was. It's fine." He sipped. "Is it?" I looked up at him, tried to smile. "Of course not." He exhaled a sharp laugh. "Right." We sat in the living room like two strangers. He stared at his mug. I stared at a spot on the floor. After a few minutes, he asked, "Are we going to talk about it?" I shook my head. "What's there to say?" He swallowed. "That it happened. That it wasn't just some mistake I made in the dark." I met his eyes. "It wasn't just you." "I know," he said. "That's what scares me." He left not long after. No kiss, no hug. Just a look, a long heavy look, and a whispered, "Thanks," like we'd shared something sacred instead of something we weren't supposed to touch. I cleaned the sheets as soon as he left. Scrubbed the bathroom sink, even though it wasn't dirty. I needed to erase it, at least from the surface. The scent of him still hung in the hallway. That night I didn't sleep. I laid in bed with my arms crossed over my chest like a corpse, and I asked myself the same question over and over. What now? The next day he texted, "I can't stop thinking about it." I didn't reply. The day after that he came by. I didn't expect him, but he didn't seem surprised when I opened the door. He just looked at me with those same tired eyes and said, "You haven't answered me." "I know." "Was it just a one-time thing for you?" I paused. "Do you want it to be?" He took a shaky breath. "No. But I'm trying to respect whatever it is. You need to feel okay." "I don't feel okay," I whispered. He looked down. "Me either." We stood in the doorway for a long time. Then he stepped in. This time he didn't touch me. Just sat at the kitchen table, picked at his thumbnail, while I poured water into glasses we didn't drink. "I know it's wrong," he said. "I don't think that's the part I'm struggling with," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "I think I'm struggling with the fact that I don't want it to stop." There it was, the thing I hadn't said out loud. The truth I couldn't scrub clean. He blinked. His shoulders dropped, like he'd been holding his breath. "Neither do I," he said quietly. "We didn't touch that night. We didn't even sit close. But everything about the way we looked at each other said we'd already made up our minds. It wasn't going to end." The next few weeks blurred. We were careful. Careful enough. He'd show up late. Leave early. We'd say things like, "This is the last time," while undressing each other in the dark. We'd pretend we had control while we tangled limbs on my living room floor, biting our tongues to keep from calling it what it was. I knew the signs. I stopped calling my sister back. I cancelled lunch plans with friends. I ignored the little voice in my head that whispered, "What if someone finds out?" The truth is, I was already found out. By myself. And I couldn't look in the mirror without flinching. He wasn't just a mistake. He was an escape. He was warmth in a life that had gone cold. He was a body that held mine like I still mattered. One night after he'd stayed too long and we were both still breathless on the couch, he ran a hand through my hair and said, "I wish we met a different way." I laughed. "You mean not as the broken kid I tried to fix?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You didn't fix me, you know." "I know, but you made me feel like I wasn't worth throwing away." My throat tightened. "That's not nothing." He kissed my shoulder. "No, it's everything. I should have ended it then. But I didn't, because I didn't know if I wanted to stop, or if I just wanted to stop hating myself for not." The call came on a Tuesday. Janine Evans' mother. She was crying before I even got a word in. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said, voice trembling, "but I think something's going on again. He's pulling away. I can feel it." My stomach dropped. "He won't talk to me," she continued. "And I know he still sees you sometimes, right? You'd tell me if something was wrong." I swallowed hard. My mouth went dry. "He's been quiet lately," I managed. "I think he's just tired." She exhaled. "I hate seeing him like this." I thought we were making progress. I told her I'd check in, that I'd let her know if I saw anything concerning. I hung up, sat down at the edge of the bed, and stared at the floor for 20 minutes. The guilt didn't just sit in my chest anymore. It bloomed. It was in the way I avoided my reflection, the way I jumped every time my phone buzzed, the way I couldn't meet Evan's eyes the next time he walked through my door. He came in like he always did, shoulders slumped, hair, messy hoodie, zipped to his neck, like he was trying to stay invisible. He smiled soft. "Hey, your mum called," I said before I could stop myself. He froze. "What did she say? That she's worried? That you're slipping?" He ran a hand over his face. "Jesus, I didn't tell her anything." "I know." He sank into the couch, hands laced behind his head, exhaling through his teeth. "She thinks I'm back on pills." "Are you?" His head snapped toward me. "No." I nodded quietly relieved, but the silence that followed was worse. He stood, started pacing. "Maybe we should stop," he said suddenly. I didn't respond. "I mean it. Maybe this isn't helping me. Maybe it's keeping me sick." His voice cracked on the word sick. "Evan," I started. "No, listen," he said. "Every time I think I'm getting better, I end up back here, with you, like it's the only thing that makes me feel human again." I took a shaky breath. "Then why does it feel like you're blaming me for that?" He stopped, looked at me. "Because I don't know how else to survive it." That was when I knew he wasn't pulling away because he didn't want me. He was pulling away because he did, and it scared him more than his addiction ever did. Later that night, after he left without touching me, I sat in my car outside my daughter's apartment. She didn't know I was there. I didn't go in. I just sat in the dark, trying to remember who I used to be, before Evan, before the guilt, before the loneliness had hardened into something I could no longer outrun. The next day I told myself I would stop it, that I'd text him, ask for space, do the responsible thing. Instead, I opened my front door at midnight when I heard his knock. He didn't speak. He just stepped inside and kissed me like it might be the last time. We didn't make it upstairs. We didn't need to. It was rougher that time, hungrier, like we both knew we were drowning and the only way out was deeper in. After we lay on the floor tangled in the throw blanket, sweat drying cold on our skin, neither of us speaking. "I can't breathe when you're not around," he said. I turned toward him. "That's not love. That's dependence." "I know," he said, "but it's all I've got." The next morning I found a note on the kitchen table. "I need to go before I ruin you. Please don't hate me for needing space to figure myself out. You were the first good thing in a long time, and that's why I have to walk away." It was folded in half, his handwriting crooked and rushed. There was no goodbye, just a signature E. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I haven't heard from him. Not a call, not a text. Janine stopped by yesterday, said he found a place upstate, that he checked himself into a long-term program on his own. I nodded, smiled, told her I was proud of him. She hugged me in the driveway, said, "I don't know what you said to him, but thank you. Whatever you did, it worked." I smiled again, lips pressed too tight, and watched her leave. I haven't told a soul, not about the nights, not about the porch, not about the way his voice made my hands stop shaking. I see him sometimes, in the shadow by the window, in the echo of a laugh I hear at the grocery store. I feel him when I lie in bed and run my hand along the empty side of the mattress. I wonder if he thinks about me, if he resents me, if he still remembers how I held him trembling and didn't let go. I wonder if he'll come back. If he does, I don't know if I'll open the door. But I know this: I've lived with guilt before, but not like this. Not when it tasted like comfort, not when it made me feel more alive than I had in years.